Hey everyone, I'm Joel.
And I'm Tarina.
In our recent video on anxiety in romantic relationships, Poltergeist Bingo 9144 asked how we might relate this to friendships. So today, we want to talk about how friendships can survive anxiety through healthy boundaries. This is a big one because, let's face it, friendships can be complicated, and setting boundaries with friends can feel even more vulnerable than doing so in other relationships.
I'll start by sharing something from my own life. Back in high school, I remember feeling so much on the outside of the friend group I desperately wanted to feel close to and fit in with. My friends would often stand in this tight circle, talking and laughing, and there were many times when they'd literally have their backs to me as if I didn't belong. I'd feel this intense embarrassment and I would awkwardly try to edge my way in. I also remember times I'd ask about weekend plans and they'd tell me that nothing was going on, only for me to overhear them on Monday laughing and talking about all the fun things they'd done together over the weekend. It was painful, and honestly, I didn't have the self-worth or the boundaries that I have now. I just thought this is what friendship looks like, and I have to try harder to fit in. Looking back, I wish I could tell my high school self that friendships shouldn't leave you feeling less than, and that self-worth is a boundary worth protecting.
For anyone going through something similar today, I can only imagine how much harder it might be with social media. When we were growing up, we didn't have to watch our friends' weekends unfold online in real time. But now, that feeling of being left out is amplified by seeing photos or videos or stories of gatherings that you weren't invited to. And that can be painful and triggering, especially if you have an anxious attachment style. That can make you feel extra sensitive to that perceived rejection. And I have also faced challenges with boundaries in my friendships. In high school, I had a friend who would call repeatedly, especially if you didn't answer, sometimes 5 or 6 times in a row. Initially, I thought that ignoring the extra calls would give him a hint that I wasn't available, but that didn't extinguish the behavior and it continued. So finally, I had to have a conversation and set a boundary, explaining that if I didn't answer the first time, calling back multiple times wasn't going to change that. I let him know that if he continued to call repeatedly, I wouldn't respond at all. Ultimately, he wasn't able to respect that boundary, and over time, we drifted apart.
Struggling to set boundaries in friendship, whether it's related to feeling left out and unseen, or having someone not respect your space, isn't something that only teens go through. Even as a therapist who helps people communicate their needs and set boundaries, I still struggle at times. These feelings of insecurity can pop up in unexpected ways, even with years of experience and self-awareness. For example, I recently experienced something similar in my current friend group. I'm the only one in the group who's really into fitness, and over the past month I hit some personal records working out that I was really proud of. So I shared my successes in our group chat, thinking they'd share in my excitement. And to be honest, I wanted them to be proud of me and what I'd accomplished. But nothing, no one responded. Meanwhile, I'd see plenty of responses to other things shared in the chat, like check out my new manicure, or more casual updates. I tried sharing again, but still no acknowledgement. Now, as a therapist, I understand the importance of avoiding mind reading or expecting others to just know what I need. So I knew I had to communicate my feelings honestly, but still it was hard. I felt vulnerable and even a little embarrassed to say, hey, I'd really like some acknowledgement for my effort. But I know that part of a healthy friendship is voicing your needs, even when it feels uncomfortable.
So today, we wanted to share some practical boundaries that can help if you're dealing with similar feelings. Setting boundaries in friendships is about balancing your own emotional needs with self-awareness and ensuring you're building relationships that feel supportive, not stressful.
Number 1, for many of us with an anxious attachment style, common triggers in friendships can be feeling left out, ignored, or unappreciated. To manage this, start by protecting your energy. If engaging with a group chat or social media leaves you feeling unseen or hurt, give yourself permission to step back. This might mean limiting how often you check in or muting notifications to protect your peace.
The next boundary is to communicate openly. Anxious attachment often leads us to hold in our fears or insecurities, but reaching out and communicating how you feel can be transformative. It can feel vulnerable, as Tarina shared about in her recent interaction, asking her friends for acknowledgement, but asking directly for what you want invites open conversation without placing blame.
Our cat Da Vinci definitely has some anxious attachment going on. He is not having this door between us.
Nope. Yeah, he's no wonder.
3. It's also important to balance your support system by having multiple circles of friends or connections. In my case, I realized that my fitness goals might be better supported outside of this friend group. By diversifying your circles of support, you don't have to rely on one person or group to meet all of your emotional needs. This can make you feel more secure, especially if you have friends who may not share all of your interests. Now, here's where it gets a bit complex. Sometimes we can misinterpret avoidant tendencies as a boundary. For instance, I have a friend I'm very close to who often needs a lot of reassurance. I want her to feel loved and supported, but there are times when I feel a bit frustrated by her need for validation and I find myself wanting to pull back. But when I pause and reflect, I realize it's not a boundary I need, it's my avoidance creeping in. At that point, I'm able to make the choice to act from my values, reminding myself that kindness and compassion are at the core of who I want to be, and respond with patience instead of pulling away.
And this brings us to self-worth boundaries. Friendships should make you feel valued and appreciated, and if they don't, it might be time to reassess the relationship.
Reflecting on my high school experience, I realize now that a self-worth boundary would have meant acknowledging that friendships should feel reciprocal, not one-sided. So this might mean gently letting go of relationships that consistently leave you feeling less than or underappreciated.
And setting boundaries in friendships, especially when you have an anxious attachment style, is an ongoing process. It requires vulnerability, self-awareness, and sometimes a sense of balance between acting on your values and resisting the urge to retreat. Remember, boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about creating a space where you can feel secure, valued, and connected with friends who appreciate you for who you are.
Thank you for watching, and thank you to Poltergeist Bingo 9144 for this question.
We want to make content that helps our viewers. So if there are topics you'd like for us to cover, let us know in the comments. We have 2 videos you might like to check out next. Linked here is our video for those who feel anxious and needy in romantic relationships. And here is one for those who tend to pull away from closeness and intimacy in their romantic relationships.
Just remember, you're not alone. We're all in this
Together.